Welcome on in. WIP Daily, Joe Giglio with you. Appreciate everyone listening, subscribing. Of course, following the podcast on any podcast platform. And, of course, YouTube as well, 94 WIP. Check it out. We appreciate everyone who listens and helping Odyssey reach the top of all the sports podcasts out there. So we appreciate that. And a lot going on, obviously, with the Super Bowl over the weekend. And now we dive deep into the offseason. Pitchers and catchers of the Phillies today. Sixers get themselves a really big win last night, a nice win last night in Cleveland. But the biggest story right now, as it pertains to the beginning of the Eagles offseason, is the Haason Reddick situation. It certainly slipped through the cracks probably NFL-wise over the weekend. Haason Reddick and the story that the Eagles have granted a permission to seek a trade because, it was overshadowed by Patrick Mahomes and the 49ers and the Super Bowl. Not here, though. It wasn't overshadowed here. It's a major story. It's the first bomb of the offseason for the Eagles. And it's a matter of where this goes now. Now, there's some similarities to last year. The Eagles basically told this to Darius Slay, go find a trade. And he didn't really find one, and then he came back. Now, this is a little bit different because this has been an extended issue with the Eagles and Haason Reddick. And if you're surprised we're here, you may not have been paying attention to the details over the last year. I'm not surprised. Am I disappointed that Haason Reddick maybe has played his last game as an Eagle? Sure, he's been their best pass rusher for years now, but I'm not surprised. Couple of pivot points that I think led us right here, right now. Number one, the Eagles used their second first-round pick last year, the 30th pick on the draft, on Haason Reddick's replacement, basically, Nolan Smith, the guy that coming out of the draft, the comp was Haason Reddick. So when you have a veteran in the back half or near the end of his deal, and you spend a very high pick on that player's clone, it's a tell that you're replacing that player. You're about to replace him. You're getting ready to grease the skids for that guy's exit and to get a cheaper version of the same player. That's what I believe the Eagles did when they drafted Nolan Smith. Now, was the evaluation of Nolan Smith wrong? Can he be as good as Reddick has been? That's all up in the air. I loved what I saw to Nolan Smith at college. Personality-wise, he reminds me of Brandon Graham. I think he could be a leader and a big Eagle down the line. But as far as last year goes, I didn't see, once we got past his injury in summer and into the season, I didn't see enough flash from Nolan Smith where I feel great about where he is right now. And remember, to go back to a Brandon Graham comp, it took Brandon Graham a couple years. So I'm not out on Nolan Smith yet. I still like him. But is he ready to take over and replace the production of Haason Reddick today or opening day of 2024? My gut is right now he's not. But that's step one. That was point one of how we're here. The second part, of course, was in the summer. And when Haason Reddick basically had a hold in, it was really kind of under talked about. I made a big deal of it on the midday show because I thought it was a big deal that Haason Reddick wasn't practicing, and it was kind of weird, the vague soreness or tiredness or groin stuff he had. I thought he was holding in. I thought he had a kind of a unsuccessful hold in because he didn't really make a big scene, but he wasn't really practicing either. And then he had the thumb surgery because he had hurt his thumb a little bit there at the end of training camp. But he wanted a new contract. And when he asked, what's going on, he said, and it was around the time other guys were getting their deals reworked or more money. And he fell behind the edge rushers in terms of his average salary. It's only about $15 per year. Nick Bosa makes $34. The best guys are $25, $27, $28. And Bosa's obviously in the $30 million range. So I'm not surprised we're here. They drafted a guy that's just like him in the first round, a possible replacement. They didn't redo his contract when he asked. So I'm not surprised we're here. As far as what happens now, my gut is that Haason Reddick has played his last game as an Eagle. That's what I feel today. I think they're going to move on from him. And I think it's going to come down to compensation. Will someone pay him? Why I think it's a little bit different than Slay last year is I think someone will pay Haason Reddick. You look at the teams and lists of teams out there with cap room. There's certainly a number of them. Teams that want to make a jump next year, need a pass rusher. He's instant pass rush. We could quibble, and I think it's begun, people are starting to talk themselves into Haason Reddick not being here. It's like, well, he didn't play the run anyway. And what did he do down the stretch of the season? The guy has over 30 sacks when you add the postseason in the last 2 years. So there will be interest in Haason Reddick. Now, will teams be offering him 30 a year? I don't know. Probably not. Will they offer him 25 a year, 24 a year? Probably. On an extra, couple years on this deal, and then it's about trade compensation the Eagles could work out. And I don't know what his value is right now in terms of a trade because you have to pay him as well. A decent comp a couple years ago, the Bears traded Khalil Mack, who's a better player, but Khalil Mack to the Chargers for a second, and I believe it was a sixth. So that is probably a framework for maybe a trade here. Now, would it be a second? Would it be a third? Would it be an early third if it's a bad team trying to make a jump? I don't know. But that's the kind, if I'm Howie, that's what I'm looking for. I don't think they get anything near a first, but if I could get a day 2 pick for Haason Reddick, that's where I would start to have some interest if I've already deemed I'm not going to pay him. And I don't think this just goes away. I don't think this is a thing where Haason Reddick probably wasn't thrilled when they drafted Nolan Smith, then wasn't thrilled when they ignored him, at least in terms of black and white, right? Like they didn't give him a contract. They may have spoke to him. They may have tried to appease him and had a conversation, but they didn't adjust his contract. And I thought they could have. I thought Trey Hendrickson with the Bengals was a fair example, similar deal, similar kind of player, age. They tacked on a year and 20-something million to the contract. I thought the Eagles could have done that for Reddick. They didn't. And then you obviously go to the season and have him drop back into coverage. He's frustrated, probably because he can't put up numbers to get this next deal. So all that's there. But as I look at, if I'm Howie, I don't think this is going to end well because I think the next step for Reddick is to not show up for camp. If they don't do anything here, if a deal doesn't get done, either an extension on his deal or they don't trade him, I don't think he's suddenly going to just say, oh, okay, I'll play out the last year of my deal. I mean, he's been building towards something bigger here. Last draft, then the kind of soft hold-in last summer. Now this. I'd be surprised if he just says, okay, you guys don't want to redo my deal? You tried to trade me, didn't work. I'll come in and play. I'll have a great season and be happy. I doubt it. This feels like a distraction. Now, look, Bosa did this with the Niners last offseason and didn't show up to the first game. They made the Super Bowl. Chris Jones didn't even show up for the first game last year. They lost to the Lions. They won the Super Bowl. So there's no rule out there that says you can't get through a summer distraction. But something tells me the Eagles, after a year of turmoil, especially down the stretch, and no harmony in that locker room and all the question marks about leadership and all, something tells me the Eagles don't want this. So I doubt this is going to end pretty unless they trade him or give him a new contract. Look, a day 2 pick is where I think we are looking at possible compensation. But the one thing that I keep coming back to, and we'll bring in Tucker in a few minutes to get his thought on this, that I can't wrap my mind around. And maybe it's time for me and all of us to kind of recalibrate what we think of the 2024 Eagles and what Howie and Jeff might think of the 2024 Eagles. And I want to make sure I put a caveat on this. I don't think Haason Reddick is, one of the 3 or 4 best defensive players in the league. He's very good. I like him. He's a heck of a pass rusher. I don't think he's that. I don't think he's Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons or those guys, but he's good. But here's what he definitely is. One of the best, if not the best defensive player on this particular team. And as I think about the 2024 Eagles and their chances to build a Super Bowl defense, if that's the goal is to get right back to this next year and be playing in a title game against the Niners or against the Lions or against the Packers or whoever next January to go to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. If that's the goal, I don't think there's any chance the Eagles are building that kind of defense for next year if Haason Reddick's not here. I mean, really, if you take Haason Reddick off this team, who are their 4 best defensive players? Just name them. Just like off top of your head, because this is what I came up with. If you take Haason Reddick out, right now I would say some combination of Josh Sweat, who also disappeared down the stretch, Jalen Carter, who disappeared down the stretch, but obviously very promising year as a rookie, second defensive rookie of the year. Darius Slay, and who's 4th? Jordan Davis, who might be a part-time player. Reed Blankenship. I mean, I'm not putting Bradbury. He stunk. I'm not putting any linebacker. Fletcher's a free agent. Brandon's old. I mean, who else would you even put? So that's what we're talking about here. That's not the bones of a championship defense. It's not even the bones of a decent defense. It's the bones of a bad defense. So subtracting Reddick, while it might be the time. They might have no choice. It might be the best for the long term. It totally makes them worse for 2024. And I don't see any way around that it makes them a worse team next year in their quest to try to get back to a Super Bowl. That does. He's their best defensive player. He's their best pass rusher. He has been for 2 years their most consistent pass rusher, over 30 sacks in the 2 years when you include the playoffs. So it clearly makes them a worse team for next year. And if they do trade Reddick, it makes me think next year is a reset year. And we're going down that path where they say, all right, we're not good enough right now. Let's get cap relief for the future as Jalen's number starts to jump. Cap relief for the future as Devontae's number's about to jump, assuming they re-sign him. Dickerson's number's about to jump as they re-sign him. Let's recalibrate this thing and let's try to get draft picks in here. They already have 3 picks in the top 50-something when you include the Saints pick they got from a couple years ago. And I could see them trying to get a day 2 pick for Haason Reddick. Let's say it's another second-round pick. Let's say it's a late second-round pick. A contender wants him, whoever, the Lions. Right, a contender wants him. They give up a pick for him, and the Eagles say, we have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. It's time to reset this thing. When you add together what we did last year with Carter and Carter and Smith, now maybe they add 3 more defensive players in this draft, and they try to be what the Chiefs did 2 years ago, which is compete on the fly, try to win on the fly while rebuilding a young defense. And my guess is the Eagles won't be as successful with it. They won't win a Super Bowl, but I could see that being the thought. But we could be heading for a reset year. Tucker, I know you're a very big fan of Haason Reddick, a Temple guy, and he's been an excellent Eagle so far. I just don't know how this ends with him here. But if it doesn't end with him here, even if they get something good back, I don't know how they have a good defense next season. Yeah,
I mean, you kind of saw this coming, right? And as someone who, purchased a Haason Reddick jersey for Christmas for my brother, it is a little upsetting. But, that's just how it goes. But, I mean, dating back to the summer, it kind of felt this way, right? He was clearly unhappy with his contract. There were a lot of, rumors and things swirling about that. And he made it pretty apparent, in training camp. And now looking ahead, I'd be surprised if he's back. This might be a negotiation tactic. You do see it a lot. Like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens did this last offseason. The Eagles obviously did this with Darius Slay before, and he came back and took another contract. So I don't think it's the end. I don't think the door is completely shut. It could simply just be a negotiation tactic. But I think enough writing's on the wall that if you expect Haason Reddick to be back, I wouldn't agree with you. And for this defense right now, I mean, you mentioned a lot of guys who need a new contract, who are due for a pay raise. And the crazy thing is all these people are due for a pay raise on a team that didn't really play well at the end of the year, right? Like, I'm not excited about giving Devontae Smith more money. I'm not excited about giving Josh Sweat more money or the defensive tackles more money or the secondary more money when this was the defense that really struggled to put things together at the end. Like, not only was this defense, underwhelming, they're fairly cheap in a lot of areas. So if you're going to let Haason Reddick walk, I don't think you necessarily have the talent to compete for a Super Bowl next year.
Now, does Ziti have a take? Your dog there. Does Ziti have a take on the whole Reddick situation?
He doesn't have a take on Haason Reddick. He's not a fan of the snow today. He peed inside for the first time in 2 weeks, but I get it. Like, it was a hailstorm this morning. I wouldn't want to pee in the hail, so I'm not gonna put that on him.
I got to say, hailstorm and peeing inside feels like a metaphor for the end of the Eagles season. That was a hailstorm, and there was a lot of peeing inside. There really was. So Ziti just made his debut here on the podcast. Tucker, I agree with what Tucker said there, and Ziti, that this is likely ending with Haason Reddick on another team. But now it's about, okay, what does that mean if he's not here? And I can't see the Eagles being a Super Bowl defense next season if he's not part of it. So is it time to recalibrate expectations? The minute he's not on this team, I'm going to say yes. Because, all right, even if you give me 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, is how are we going to hit those? Are they going to be ready? Can they play at a high level next year? The Eagles are in a weird little situation where we still want to believe the window that opened, whether you believe it was 2021 or 2022, exists. Like, they're still in that Super Bowl window. Actions always speak louder than words, though. Always in the NFL. Teams will tell you where they are, where they think they are, by what they could do. And the Chiefs are probably a great outlier, but the Chiefs a couple years ago moved on from Tyreek Hill. And I think the Eagles could probably look at a similar situation. Really, are we really going to pay $25, $27 million for a 29 going on 30-year-old edge rusher who doesn't play the run when we get picks back and rebuild around our now more expensive quarterback? I imagine the Eagles probably look at the Chiefs and say, we should try going down that blueprint with this. Now, can they win 2 Super Bowls while they turn the whole thing over the way the Chiefs did? No, I don't think so, because they don't have Mahomes and Reed. But that's probably where we're going with this. If Haason Reddick's not here, the Eagles' chances to win next year's Super Bowl take a major hit to me, but their chances to win Super Bowl 60 and 61 certainly might get better. I would try to hold on to Haason Reddick. I don't think he's going to be here. And I think the tell is going to be what they do, what it tells us about who they are and what they are. We may be closer to a reset on the Eagles roster rather than an all-in season for 2024. Appreciate everyone listening, subscribing, following WIP Daily. Stay safe out there. Don't be like Ziti and have accidents in the house. It was quite a ride in to Philadelphia this morning. The snow is sticking out there. Hopefully you could stay at home, work at home, and enjoy a little WIP Daily. We will talk tomorrow. Happy Pitchers and Catchers Report Day. We'll talk soon on WIP Daily.